The grand chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with low murmurs, alien delegates shifting in their seats, exchanging glances, and adjusting holographic datapads. The room was vast, circular, and dominated by a towering central platform where the High Chancellor, Voratil, presided over the session. The bright, cool light of 1,000 distant stars filtered through the transparent walls of the chamber, casting an ethereal glow on the assembly. Captain Alara Hayes stood on the edge of the platform, her posture rigid, her eyes steady. She was the youngest member of the Terran delegation, but she had earned her place in this room through sheer force of will. Today, Earth's future in the Galactic Council would be decided, and the weight of it pressed down on her shoulders like a starship's bulkhead. Captain Hayes, Voratil's voice broke through the quiet, her tone as cold and precise as the steel of the ancient Xylem warships. Your delegation has had time to review the proposed regulations. Do you speak for humanity now? Alara's heart raced, but her voice was calm. I do, High Chancellor. And humanity rejects your proposal. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, alien faces flickering with disbelief. For millennia, the Galactic Council had operated on the principle of mutual cooperation and peace, governed by regulations designed to maintain balance. Each species brought something unique to the table, and their combined influence shaped the course of the galaxy. Earth, only a recent member, had always complied. Until now. Voratil's lips curled into a thin smile, the faintest trace of amusement in her gaze. Are you certain of this, Captain Hayes? The regulations are necessary for the stability of our collective future. Humanity's recent military expansion has raised concerns. She paused, letting the word hang in the air like a weight. You cannot be allowed to destabilize the fragile peace we have maintained for so long. Alara's pulse quickened. She'd anticipated this moment, but hearing it out loud made it all too real. The regulations would strip Earth of its autonomy, limit military development, and impose strict controls on resource extraction, restrictions that would curb the human spirit, diminish Earth's burgeoning influence, and force the Terran coalition to bow to an ancient order that cared little for humanity's survival. We will not bend to your will, Alara said, her voice unwavering. The people of Earth fought, bled, and rebuilt their world after centuries of collapse. We will not give up our sovereignty to placate your council's fears. The room fell silent. Even Voratil seemed momentarily stunned by the force of Alara's words. The High Chancellor's eyes narrowed, her gaze becoming sharp, calculating. The Xylan were known for their ability to manipulate, to bend others to their will with the most subtle of threats. But Alara had spent her life navigating the delicate balance between diplomacy and defiance. She would not be intimidated. I remind you, Voratil said, her voice cold as the depths of space, that your rejection of this proposal will have consequences. The Council can enforce its will, Captain Hayes. You will face economic sanctions, trade embargoes, and isolation from the galactic community. A murmur of agreement rippled through the delegates. Alara could see the doubt flicker in some of their eyes, their concerns about Earth's rapid rise, their fear that humanity would disrupt the status quo. But they didn't understand. Humanity wasn't just looking for a seat at the table, they were carving their own place. Alara took a step forward, her gaze locked on the High Chancellor. Humanity is not afraid of your sanctions, Voratil. We've survived worse than this. We will not be cowed by threats or fear tactics. The tension in the room thickened, palpable like a storm on the horizon. Several delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing. Some were eager to see humanity brought into line, others, like the Githeri delegate in the corner, appeared unsure, their complex eyes flickering with hidden thoughts. There was a long history of distrust between the ancient species and humanity, but this moment could change everything. Voratil's expression darkened, her mask of diplomacy slipping for just a second. You are naive if you think this can end without bloodshed. The galaxy is not built on the whims of a single species, no matter how ambitious. You are an infant among giants. Alara's lips tightened, but she remained composed. She knew Voratil was trying to provoke a response, trying to undermine her confidence. But humanity wasn't going to crumble in the face of such threats. Perhaps, Elara said, the words crisp, but it is better to be an infant with the strength to grow than to be an ancient species shackled by its own stagnation. Her voice carried, unyielding. Humanity has earned its place here, and we will not give it up. Not now. Not ever. A low, almost imperceptible hum ran through the chamber, the delegates shifting uneasily. Some were uncomfortable, some outraged, but none could ignore the gravity of Elara's stance. She had made her declaration, and now there was no turning back. Voratil regarded her silently for a long moment, weighing her options. The Council could not afford to let humanity defy them. Not now, not when their power was already fragile. But the High Chancellor's mind worked quickly. If Earth rejected this proposal, there were ways to make them comply. The Council had its leverage, its spies, its economic dominance, its fleets. There were always ways to bring a rebellious species to heel. Very well, Captain Hayes, Voratil said, her voice smooth once more, as if the previous tension had been a mere distraction. You have made your choice. Let it be known to your people that you have chosen the path of isolation. But understand this, your refusal will mark the beginning of humanity's downfall in the eyes of the galaxy. The Council does not forgive such insolence. Elara's jaw clenched, but she remained resolute. We will stand on our own terms, Voratil. No matter the cost. The High Chancellor gave a curt nod, signaling the end of the session. Elara could feel the weight of the room's gaze upon her, the fear and respect she had earned through sheer will and determination. It was done. As the delegates began to file out, Elara remained standing, watching the vast expanse of stars beyond the chamber. Earth's future hung in the balance, but there was no going back now. She had made her stand. And now, the real battle began. The soft hum of the starship's engines barely penetrated the silence in the command bridge. Elara Hayes stood before the viewport, watching the endless void of space, her mind far from the gleaming stars. Earth was now facing the consequences of its defiance, economic sanctions, political isolation, and the cold threat of an armed response from the Galactic Council. Her hands rested on the smooth surface of the console, her gaze unfocused, lost in thought. Captain, we've received a new communication from the Council. Lieutenant Miracade's voice broke through her reverie, sharp and calm as always. Elara turned, her eyes narrowing. Myra's tone carried the weight of a warning, the kind that meant things were about to escalate further. She took the datapad from her second-in-command and scanned the contents. A message from Voratil, direct and devoid of any pleasantries. *, we have noted your rejection. Your continued refusal to comply will have dire consequences for Earth. The Council will meet again in 1 week's time. Come to your senses before then. *. The words were a threat wrapped in the thinnest layer of diplomacy. Voratil was not one for idle words. Elara knew this was just the beginning. We can't back down, Mira, Elara said, her voice steady but heavy with the burden of leadership. If we give in now, humanity's independence will be nothing but an illusion. The Council will bleed us dry. I agree, Mira replied, her eyes scanning the message again. But the pressure is mounting. Trade routes are already starting to shut down. We're seeing fewer and fewer ships willing to dock at Earth ports. Resources are becoming scarce. We knew it would happen, Elara said, her gaze turning back to the stars. We've always known the cost of defying them. But we can't afford to show weakness now. Mira hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. And what if we can't hold out? What if the sanctions break us before we can force their hand? Elara didn't respond immediately. Myra's words struck a chord deep inside her, one that she dared not acknowledge out loud. The Terran coalition had fought for independence from Earth's past, a past shaped by war, scarcity, and survival. Now, with the Council's economic chokehold tightening, Earth's strength would be tested in ways no one could predict. Have we made contact with the resistance factions on Mars? Elara asked, shifting the focus to something more practical. Yes, Captain, Mira replied. They're mobilizing, as requested. But their resources are limited. They'll need time before they can make a move on the Council's supply lines. Alara nodded, taking in the situation. Mars was Earth's greatest ally in this fight. They had their own reasons for standing against the Council. Mars had long resented the influence the Xylan had over its mining operations, and now, with the growing unrest on Earth, the Red Planet was ready to make its move. However, even Mars' vast network of fighters and spies wouldn't be enough to overcome the full might of the Galactic Council, especially without more allies. A ping echoed through the command bridge, pulling Alara back from her thoughts. A new message, this one from Earth's High Command. Patch it through, she ordered. A holographic image flickered to life in the center of the room. General David Ashford, Earth's military leader, appeared, his face grim, yet resolute. Captain Hayes, we've got reports from the outer colonies, Ashford said, his voice tight with concern. Council-backed sabotage is hitting us hard. Our defense systems are being compromised. The satellite grids around our colonies are failing one by one. If this continues, we'll be vulnerable to a direct strike before we even know it's coming. Alara's chest tightened. The Council wasn't just isolating Earth, they were laying the groundwork for something far more sinister. They were pushing Earth toward war. How long until the next strike, she asked, her voice clipped. We don't know, Ashford replied, his image flickering. But if we don't act fast, we won't have any defenses left. We're moving forces to bolster the outer colonies, but the sabotage is far more coordinated than we thought. Alara glanced at Mira, who stood silently by her side. Get me a secure line to Mars Command, she said, her mind racing. We need to hit them first, strike before they do. General Ashford's hologram flickered again. Understood. Earth's fleet will support the operation, but we need your word that this won't escalate further. The Council will retaliate if we push too hard. Alara's gaze hardened. If we don't strike first, Earth will be nothing more than a target. I won't let that happen. The connection was severed, and the bridge returned to its quiet hum. Alara stood motionless, the weight of the decision settling heavily on her shoulders. It was no longer just a matter of diplomacy, it was a matter of survival. We're playing a dangerous game, Mira said softly, watching Alara's tense expression. We don't have a choice, Alara replied, her voice low but resolute. The Council wants to break us, but they underestimate what humanity is capable of. We won't just survive, we'll make them regret ever thinking we could be controlled. The sound of footsteps echoed on the bridge, and Alara turned to see Commander Tris Valen, a seasoned combat strategist, approach. She was one of the few officers who had been with Alara since Earth's ascension into the Council, and her loyalty was unquestionable. Captain, Tris said, her voice carrying the edge of urgency. The sabotage efforts are escalating. We've intercepted communications suggesting that the Xylan are rallying their forces for a military response. If we don't act within the next 48 hours, they'll have the momentum. Alara's eyes narrowed. Then we have no time to waste. We hit them hard, fast, and with everything we've got. Myra's expression softened. You're planning to escalate this into a full-scale war, Captain. I'm planning to defend Earth, Alara corrected her, her eyes fierce. The Council wants to make us an example. I'll make sure they know the cost of that mistake. Mira and Tris exchanged glances, both of them understanding the gravity of the situation. Alara had made her decision. The time for negotiation was over. The Terran coalition would stand its ground, even if it meant plunging the galaxy into war. We're with you, Captain, Tris said, her voice steady. What's the first step? Alara looked out at the dark expanse of space once more. The weight of what lay ahead pressed down on her chest, but the fire of resolve burned brighter than ever. Prepare the fleet, she said. We're not just fighting for Earth's future anymore, we're fighting for humanity's right to exist on our own terms. The war was coming, and humanity was ready to meet it head-on. The tension in the command bridge was palpable, the air thick with anticipation. Alara stood at the front, her eyes focused on the holographic map spread out before her. It was an intricate network of Earth's colonies, each one a point of vulnerability as the Galactic Council's influence crept closer. The outer colonies had become a flashpoint, sabotage, covert strikes, and pressure from the Council all aimed at weakening Earth's resolve. Now, the clock was ticking. "Captain, we're ready," Miracade's voice broke through the silence, a soft crackle in her comms as she approached. Her eyes were sharp, betraying the underlying tension she was trying to control. "The Mars fleet has mobilized. We have a window to hit the Council's supply lines before they can reinforce." Elara nodded, turning to face her second-in-command. "Good. Let's make it count." The plan was simple: hit them where they were weakest, where the Council's control was fractured. The mining routes from Mars, vulnerable to disruption, would be the first target. Mars had already coordinated a small strike force, but Earth's fleet would provide the punch needed to make the attack decisive. "Prepare the fleet for launch," Elara ordered, her voice firm. She moved to the tactical display, watching the silhouettes of Earth's ships come online, each one brimming with firepower and readiness. These weren't just ships, they were Earth's defiance against an oppressive force. "I want everything timed to the second." Mira tapped her console, coordinating with Mars Fleet Command. "Launching in 3 minutes. We're in position." Elara took a deep breath. It had all come down to this moment. The human race had always prided itself on resilience, on standing tall when the odds were stacked against them. But nothing had prepared her for the weight of the decision she'd made, sending humanity's forces into the heart of the Council's empire, risking everything for a future of independence. The communication channels buzzed as Mars Admiral Lyra Kest sent the final confirmation. "Mars fleet ready. We'll hit the supply depot on Elysium Station as planned. Prepare for immediate extraction after the strike." Elara's eyes narrowed. The Council would retaliate swiftly once the strike hit. Earth's forces would be at risk, but the success of the operation was critical. She couldn't afford hesitation. "Execute," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Moments later, the hum of the engines intensified as the fleet surged forward, transitioning to full speed. The cold void outside the ship's viewport was punctuated by the occasional shimmer of distant stars, but Elara's focus remained on the mission. "Opening the jump gates," Mira announced. A flash of blue energy rippled outward as the ships transitioned into faster-than-light travel, the stars blurring into streaks of light. In less than a minute, they would emerge in the Elysium system, and the clock would be ticking on the strike. The sudden shift of light distorted the view outside the bridge. As the ships exited FTL, the Elysium station loomed large in the distance, a massive hub of trade and supply lines for the Galactic Council. Its sleek metallic surface reflected the light of the nearby star, and every inch of its perimeter was guarded by automated defense systems. Elara's pulse quickened. This was it, the first true test of humanity's mettle. "We're in position," Mira reported, her voice tight but controlled. "Mars fleet is initiating the attack now." The first volley of missiles from Mars ships streaked across the expanse, impacting the station's shields with explosive force. The station's defense system retaliated almost immediately, launching countermeasures and deploying drone fighters to intercept. But Mars fleet was already pulling back, drawing the defense system's attention while Earth's ships flanked from the opposite side, targeting the less protected supply lines. "Keep the pressure on," Elara commanded, her eyes locked on the tactical display. "We need those supply lines down." The tension on the bridge heightened as the battle unfolded in real time. The station's outer defenses were falling, but not fast enough. The drones swarmed, creating a chaotic battlefield in the vacuum of space. Elara watched the holographic display as Earth's ships launched their own barrage, their weapons slamming into the weak points of Elysium Station. Direct hit on the supply depot, Tris Valen, the fleet commander, reported from her station. "The station's fuel reserves are compromised. We've got them on the ropes." The sound of the comm system flaring to life interrupted the momentary lull. General Ashford's voice was urgent, crackling through the communication link. "Elara, you need to pull back now. The Council is mobilizing, reinforcements are on the way." They've activated their fleet out of Kepler Station. It's going to be a full-on counterstrike. Elara didn't flinch. She could feel the weight of his words, but there was no time for hesitation. If they pulled back now, they'd never have another chance to make their mark. Not yet, General. We're hitting them hard, this is our moment to send a message. The tension surged again as the last of the station's shield generators collapsed. Elysium Station was vulnerable now, its once gleaming surface scarred by impacts, and the supply lines were severed. It was only a matter of time before the station would fall into chaos. Admiral Kess, Elara said, her voice steady as she addressed the Mars fleet. Initiate extraction protocols. Earth's fleet will cover your retreat. As the Mars fleet began to pull back, the first Council reinforcements arrived. Huge warships, their sleek forms cutting through the void with terrifying speed, emerged from the far side of the system. Their weapons flared, and Elara's heart skipped a beat as the first wave of blasts sailed through space, targeting Earth's ships. Defensive maneuvers. Elara barked, gripping the edge of her console. Return fire. Shields up, full power. The ship rocked as a blast hit, the force reverberating through the hull. Her eyes darted to the damage report flashing on the screen. The shields were holding, but barely. The Council had come prepared. Deploy countermeasures, Mira called, her hands flying over the controls. We need to buy time for the fleet to escape. Elara watched as the fleet's fighters engaged the incoming Council ships, the flashes of laser fire lighting up the darkness. Her heart raced, but her mind stayed focused. They had made their mark, crippled a vital supply line, and sent a clear message to the Council. Now, the priority was survival. We'll hold the line, Elara muttered under her breath, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Humanity will stand. The battle was far from over, but one thing was clear, Earth had taken the first step in rewriting its fate. And the galaxy would soon know it had made an enemy that would never back down.